we must honor our veterans for all the sacrifice and service that they have provided. We're here today to do just that. Like I said earlier, this is the second ceremony for Bear Canyon. And none of this would have been possible without the support and dedication of one very important person, is that our mayor, Richard J. Berry, with his administration coming in and recognizing how important our veterans are. So it gives me great pleasure this morning to introduce our mayor, Richard J. Berry.
Good morning. Thank you for the kind words, but really it's about you. And it has to do with each and every one of you and each and every one of the 287 veterans that we've been able to honor with these veterans walls at our senior centers. And it really goes as a tribute to Roger Newell and George Armijo Brasher, who are true believers, not just in seniors and making sure that Albuquerque is the best place in America to age, to be a senior, but also recognizing that we are a state and a city and a nation built on the backs of veterans. You, generation after generation, who were willing to step up and fight for what we hold dear. So this is really about simply saying thank you, but doing it in a way that allows your legacy to carry forward, and I'll explain that in just a minute. So we didn't used to have a veterans liaison at the city. When I was in the state House of Representatives, we talked a lot about veterans and the impact in New Mexico. There are 170,000 of you in this state. So we have a long and storied tradition of veteran service. So this is about making sure that you know that we appreciate that. And I know personally as a mayor that I don't get a chance to come out on a beautiful New Mexico morning and give a speech, or turn on my television and watch what I want, or go to church and worship as I see fit and my family sees fit, or to speak my mind in the city square if we don't have freedom. And you walk that walk, and you know it doesn't come free. And so this is a way for us to, once again, acknowledge that service. But then I want you to think about what we're doing and why we're doing it this way. And this is Roger's idea. So he came into me a couple of years ago, and he wanted to do these honors, and Georgia wanted to do these honors. So that's a no-brainer. That's absolutely. Tell us where to get started, and we're going to get started. But then we started thinking about, and Roger started thinking about, well, where are we going to do this? Let's do it where you are, where you come every day, so you get a chance to see the thank you every day. But then there's going to be people coming after you. And these senior centers and these community centers in the city of Albuquerque, we host lots and lots of things. We get little kids in here. We get folks that are a little older in here. And think about, yeah, I heard the giggle on the little woman. So think about a young person coming in here and seeing the Veterans Wall. And they see a picture of you as a young person when you're in service. And then they see you in a current day picture. And they get a chance to see someone who spent their life in service. And then they get a chance to be inspired by someone who gave of themselves. A lot of people out there need a lift up on any given day. A lot of people need an inspiration. A lot of people need a little push forward. A lot of people need to see you. They need to see the names and the faces and read the stories of people who have been willing to serve to get the inspiration that they need, maybe just to get through the day. Or maybe if it's a young person to step up and raise their hand in service to their country. So it's about you, and it's about us making sure that you know that you're appreciated. I do want to say thank you to Kyle Kemp. Where'd Kyle go? Kyle is the director of this center here, and all of the folks that work with Georgia. I know that Angel Montoya is right here. She has worked so hard on this particular effort. But really, everybody that's here to cook breakfast and make sure that your day goes well, let's give them a nice round too. So we're going to add 45 more heroes today, and I'm glad you're here. And we have folks all the way from World War II veterans up to current day. We have Cold War veterans, Korean War veterans, Gulf War veterans here. So let's see, did I miss any? I don't think I missed any there. Vietnam, of course, and one of the things I always say to our Vietnam vets is that, you weren't treated well. Let's just be honest about it. You weren't treated well when you came home, and those days are gone. And we can't help what happened back then, but we can help what happens today. So thank you for your service. And let's get started with this because we want to honor you each individually. And I'm going to give it back to Roger, and we'll get started with the ceremony. Thank you.
Good morning again. I want to just highlight a couple things that the mayor was talking about. We're talking about heritage, veteran heritage, but we're also talking about New Mexico heritage. How many people know what New Mexico did as a Spanish colony to support the American Revolution? Does anybody know anything? I know Tim does because I've told him. I told him so I'd have one person that could raise their hand and say, yes, I don't feel so bad now. Back in the 1770s, late 70s, when the American Revolution started, Spain was an ally. The governor of New Mexico's territory at that point issued an edict. Every citizen would give a minimum of 2 pesos and whatever food or clothing that they could provide to the government. The government in turn shipped that to basically New Orleans. And from there, it was transferred to the American troops to support the troops. So when someone says to you, gee, you're only 200 years old, or you're only 100 years old, and our history only goes back to the Mexicans crossing the border and the National Guard being formed down there, I want to let you know, your history goes back a long way. And so be proud of what you are. This morning, we're going to do a little bit different, only because there are too many plaques here and not enough space out there. So when we call your name off, please come forward. I've got a colored picture that's similar to the picture you took when you came in to get this started for this time. I've got a little packet for you. It's got a folded flag, and it has a card thanking you for your service from the mayor and myself. Those are for you to keep. Then we will hang the plaques on the wall after the ceremony. Just a note of caution, all of the plaques that we have hung on this wall belong to the city. So please don't feel it's something you want to take home to show your kids. If it's really vital that you have to have your own copy, we can arrange for that. But as you can see out there now, there are holes in the wall, and we don't want any more holes in the wall when we finish today and in the future. So,
Start it out here. All right.
our first veteran coming up, David Ansel. Is David here? David's in Army service. He was in the Vietnam conflict, and he served from 1961 to 1981.
There you go. So I'm going to give you your photograph there, and then we'll put these over here. We'll hang it on the wall. Okay. Thank you.
Shirley Ash. Is Shirley here? Okay. Shirley and her husband Sidney. Both of them were in the Navy. Both are part of the Cold War. And 1953 to 1965 for Shirley, 1947 to 1972 for Sidney. And I apologize, I got out of cycle here. It happens when you get to be a senior, right? Angelo Acaro. Is Angelo here? Angelo was also in the Army, Cold War. 1953 to 1965. Kenneth Benson. Good morning, Kenneth. Come on up here. Kenneth was in the Air Force, part of the Cold War, served in the 1980s. If I don't kill this name, Bruce Bucker? That was close.
Is there an order to them? Gotcha. There we go. There we go. Congratulations to you. Here, we'll turn around if you want to.
Bruce was in the Air Force, Cold War, 1954 to 1958. Ed Bradley. Ed was in the Navy, part of the Cold War, 1951 to 1954. Ronald Botkin. Ronald was in the Air Force. Yeah. Ronald, you made it. Ronald was in the Air Force, 1957 to 1984. Pete Cabela, am I close? Not close enough for anybody to recognize it, right?
Cabanilla?
Cabanilla,
Is that right?
U.S. Navy, 1969 to 1972. Michael Carrero. Michael couldn't decide who he wanted to serve with.
Is it Cariglio? Is it
Caligreo.
Is that right?
Thank you. He was in the Navy
Come around there, she wants to get your photograph.
in 1940 to 1945, World War II veteran, and then joined the Air Force in 1958 through 1974.
After the lot of service. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Vincent Chavez, coming in from the back court. Vincent was also in the Navy. He was in Vietnam, 1963 to 1967.
Pretty distinguished there, man.
James Clark. James was also in the Air Force, 1955 to 1959.
I'm gonna have to get to work on it. I'm gonna have to get to work on that. Okay. I'm lagging behind you there. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Robert Cohn. Robert was in the Navy, 1962 to 1967.
This is for you here. Thank you for your service. We appreciate you. We're gonna put that up there.
John Cronin. That's him?
Yes, sir.
Good. John was in the Navy, 1946 to 1950.
So you got your picture? We'll send you home with that one. Thank you. I like the ball. That's great. Thank you.
Harry Davidson. Harry was in the Navy from 1957 to 1978. Harry also has another tribute to his name and the group he belongs to. How many people have been to the airport and seen the planes in the display case? That was one of Harry's programs. Robert Duraloo. Robert was in the Air Force, 1964 to 1968.
Can you really see right behind you there? Okay, gotcha. I just didn't know.
We just verify that.
Mike Corona? He was here. I lied about you. Mike was in the Marine Corps, as you can tell, 1947 to 1956. And is still fairly good at close order drill. Robert Elder. Robert was in the Navy, 1977 to 1993. Bob Elliott. Bob was in the Army. Bob was in Vietnam, 1971 to 1974. Robert Fraser. Robert was in the Navy, World War II, 1944 to 1946. Alan Gould. Alan was in the Marine Corps, 1951 to 1954. Chuck Haverson.
There he is.
Chuck is our single representative from the Coast Guard in all of our walls. 1963, 1967. Vernon Havel. Here he comes. Vernon was in the Air Force, 1951 through 1952. John Heckler. Come on. John was in the Air Force, served in Vietnam, 1953 through 1973. Gary Ho. United States Air Force. (1965 to 1991). One of Gary's first tours was on an AC-130, the gunships. I'm sorry to tell you, Harry, I was there on AC-47s. Shirley Kramer? I think Shirley's going to make it. Shirley was in the Air Force in the 1950s. Ray Krantz. Ray was in the Navy, World War II, 1942 to 1946. James Luce. James was in the Navy from 1943 to 1945, World War II, and couldn't get enough of it, so he went back in 1952 to 1954. Claire Maestas.
There she is.
Claire was in the Army, 1979 to 1989. Terry Matthews. Terry was in the Navy, 1958 to 1981. William McCullough. William was in the Army, was in Vietnam. He, like myself, didn't understand how to duck at the right time.
Old soldiers never die, they just fade away.
You got it. 1951 to 1996 plus, he's still active. Stephen Miller. Stephen was in the Air Force, 1968 to 1990. As they say in the old radio show, page 2. Wally Murray. Wally was in Korea with the Army, 1953 to 1955. Matthew Parker.
There he is.
Come on up, Matthew. Matthew was in the Air Force, 1956 to 1960. Dick Probst. Dick was in the Army, 1957 to 1959. David Rain. David was in the Navy, in Vietnam. Seabees. 1967 to 1973. Richard Shackley. Shackley, I'm sorry. U.S. Army, 1971 to 1973. Norman Sharp. Norman was in the Army, 1949 to 1952. Louis Soto.
Says smoothie on there.
Yeah, I know. Smoothie. Louis was in the Army, 1966 to 1968. I believe he was actually in Vietnam too. Thank you, sir. Chris Tim. Mayor, give him a candy bar for raising his hand. Chris was in the Army, 1962 to 1965. Ivan Travanik. Ivan here?
He's over there, yep.
He's coming up, good. Ivan was in the Navy, in Vietnam, 1964 to 1968. Thank you. Randall Wallard. I know he's here someplace. United States Air Force. 1971 to 1975, but he actually served till 93. I didn't record it because I was having trouble reading his bio.
I was redeployed to the Pentagon for 9/11 Trade Center.
William Weiss.
There he is.
William was in the Army, World War II, 1943 to 1947. David Wimsatt. David was in the Air Force, 1981 to 2001. Edwin Whitter. Edwin is not here. He was in the Air Force also, 1948 to 1952.
thank each and every one of you who have given time and service, and to your families. The mayor said it well when he said this day is about you.
I'm sorry, we're just talking.
We're just talking, we want the mic.
Okay. It's about you and your service and the memory that you have created for our country and for our city. So we thank you for that. Keep your stories strong, pass them around. This community needs you. Thank you so much. Today we have a very special addition to our program, and it gives me great honor to have our mayor kick that off. So Mayor, with your
Thank you.
pleasure.
Georgia, thank you. First of all, give yourselves a round of applause. That was great. So Roger, as I mentioned earlier, is our first Veterans Liaison for the City of Albuquerque, first one we've ever had. And he's done a tremendous job for lots and lots of folks, and we're here for you through the end of the administration, certainly, and we'll promote the next mayor to do the same thing. So today we handed out our 287th plaque of thank you, of recognition. And as I said earlier, that was the brainchild, and it came from the heart of Roger Newell. And he's never one time asked me for anything from an award standpoint. And today we're going to take a little time. This is our last one that we'll be doing. I want to give a little bit of a tribute to my friend Roger Newell. And let me just read through some of this. If you don't know Roger, he served his country, and he serves the veterans of our community today. As I said, he's been my Veterans Liaison since way back in 2011. Roger is a former active duty and reserve Air Force serviceman. He has served as the National Commander for the Military Order of the Purple Heart and currently serves as the National ROTC Officer for the Purple Heart Youth Programs. Roger is the recipient of the Distinguished Flying Cross Medal, an award recognizing his service while participating in aerial flight as a C-123. A C-123 Loadmaster, and a Tonley Cham in the Republic of Vietnam in September of 1967. Roger, this distinguished person, earned a master's in physical education for special needs children from Springfield College and has over 20 years of experience in both the public and private sector education industries. While he has served as my Veterans Liaison, he has created a veterans preference in the hiring system within the City of Albuquerque. And this is a really important thing. We wanted to get our veterans to the front of the line when it came to hiring into the City of Albuquerque. If you're a veteran, you're someone special. You bring special skill sets, certainly, but you also bring a veteran's heart. So we started a program to intentionally hire veterans, and since then, we've hired 316 veterans at the City of Albuquerque. Roger came into my office one day and he said, "My friends are having trouble getting to the VA. What can we do?" I said, "I don't know, you figure it out, you're the military guy." And he said, "Well, why don't we give them free bus passes? If they don't have a way to get to the VA and they need to get there, why don't we let them ride the bus for free? Show your card, making sure that that's who you are and that you're actually going to the VA, and you can hop on a bus anytime for free." Since Roger did that, 1,765,500 people have gotten on that bus over time to get out to the VA. And to get the care that they deserve and that we promised as a nation. Roger's also played a pivotal role in the endowment of the Freedom Award granted to the Albuquerque Police Department in 2016 and the Albuquerque Fire Departments in 2013. That's our support of our active duty police and firefighters who are serving our country. As a Veterans Liaison for the city, I encourage Roger to spend time out of the mayor's office. So get your butt out of your chair and get out there in the community. I didn't say it that way. It sounded good to say it though. And identify ways that we can honor and show appreciation to those who serve our country. Installing the Veterans Walls at each of the senior multi-generational centers was a great way, I believe, to accomplish this task. So I'm pleased that Roger was able to partner with Georgia and her team at the Department of Senior Affairs to make these walls happen. I walked in, I said, Roger, how you doing? He goes, I'm tired. And I said, what are you tired from? He says, I was up till 2:30 this morning putting these plaques together. So that's the kind of dedication that he has. Roger, not only have you honored our veterans and their families and friends, but you spend many, many hours taking their pictures, listening to their stories, assembling the photos that you see of yourselves and your colleagues on the wall, and make sure that the nails are perfectly aligned. And if you've ever hung more than 3 pictures in a row on a wall, you know what I'm talking about. So he and his wife, Martha Ann, Marty is here. This is Marty taking your pictures today, this beautiful woman here. They've been married for 49 years. They have 2 children and 1 granddaughter. And on the behalf of the City of Albuquerque, I want to express my sincere appreciation and thanks to my favorite Purple Heart veteran, Roger Newell. And just to say to you, my friend, as the mayor of this city, as someone who's grateful for our veterans, yourself included, the work that you've done, the servant's heart that you have brought to this effort on the City of Albuquerque to honor our heroes is humbling to me. Our community is grateful. I'm grateful. And so today, we actually want to present you with your very own something to hang on the wall. And we're gonna let Roger hang his. We're gonna do a deal like this for Roger. Oh, it's already here. Look at that. So we're going to hang Roger on the wall right next to you, and he's gonna get a chance to pick. How many senior centers have we done this at? 4, 5, 6? 8. So these photographs are at 8 different senior centers. We'll let Roger pick the one that he wants to hang on the wall. And it says, Tech Sergeant Roger Newell, U.S. Air Force, conflict, Vietnam, 1965 to 1972. And he's looking pretty sharp in those BDUs there on the first one. But Roger, with all gratitude, thank you, my friend. God bless you.
I caught the mayor unguarded. One of the traditions in the military is exchange of challenge coins. One of the things I did was I created a challenge coin for veterans that worked for the city at no charge. And I had it paid for outside the city, so there was no charge to the city. What I gave the mayor is my personal challenge coin. It reflects my Air Commando, 19th Air Commando Squadron in Vietnam. It reflects the year that I lived there, the awards I received. And it's a very special coin to me, and I hope the mayor will carry it well. You know, there is a challenge with challenge coins. If you pull it out at the right time, it could be worth a beer. If you pull it out at the wrong time, in other words, the person that you pull it out for has a higher coin, you're gonna buy. Or if someone challenges you and you don't have your coin with you, you're going to buy. So they are very, very meaningful to all of us. And I realize the mayor has never been a veteran. But I've never seen him hold that back in support of our veterans here in the city and here in the state. So with a grateful heart, I made that presentation to him. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all for coming today so much. Roger, thank you. I will cherish this. And we wish you a good day. And have a good rest of your week. And God bless and Godspeed. Thank you.